So what is up, guys? Today I want to talk to you about something I want to discuss for a while, and it's why Uncharted 4 competitive essentially died. And for those who aren't really in the little Uncharted competitive loop, most people in the competitive community will tell you that Uncharted 4 competitive basically died. And there's a couple of different opinions of why it died, but today I'm going to give you what I feel like is the most comprehensive answer to why it died, because there's not really one sole reason why it died, but a couple of factors that kind of contributed to why Uncharted 4 competitive kind of just died. And one of the main reasons people like to throw out there is, oh, well, it's because the community's AIDS. And to be honest, the Uncharted community isn't really that bad. I mean, if you really want to see some toxic gaming communities, you're more than welcome to go test your luck in League of Legends, Counter-Strike, hell, even Call of Duty's community is probably 10 times worse than the Uncharted community. The main reason why Uncharted's community has been considered AIDS for a while, and it's because of the fact that there just isn't that many people in the Uncharted community in general. I mean, we're talking about a community the size of maybe a couple thousand at most who play it avidly, who even less who literally play it competitively, like on ladders and stuff like that, and do clan battles, even less people. But if I were to account for people who avidly play the Uncharted multiplayers and like kind of know everyone, have tons of friends, and kind of know all the players in Uncharted, I want to say it's less than 10,000 people who literally play Uncharted 2, 3, and 4 multiplayer avidly. And yes, we've lost some people along the way, but in general, the community has always been fairly small. And I think that might have been the reason why there's so much conflict in the Uncharted community over the years. It's a little tight-knit, dysfunctional family, and everyone kind of butts head because we're just this little tiny people, and like we conflict with each other. Like I said, it's a little dysfunctional family. And to be completely honest, although I have seen some really slimy stuff being said and done in the Uncharted community in the past, I really don't think it's that bad. And to be honest, I feel like some of the drama might have been the reason why Uncharted 4 multiplayer even lived. I mean, it was a little bit entertaining, but at the same time, it wasn't at the levels as it was before. And to be honest, I mean, some of the drama might have helped some of these multiplayer games in the past 2 and 3, because like you wanted to see how these rivalries and these stories played out, like X or Y players had beef with so-and-so, and they would battle out and play each other constantly, and there'd be constant shit-talking. That really wasn't the case in Uncharted 4. It was mainly just a couple people just being, I don't know, jackasses, ass clowns. There's like 3 or 4 of them, and then the rest of the people in the Uncharted competitive community were just like, eh. So there really wasn't very interesting storylines or much conflict or a lot of beefs with these teams in general, or even players. It was like I said, maybe 2 or 3, 4 players tops who were running their mouths, and everyone just thought they're idiots, and that was about it. So I mean, in general, the drama might have been keeping the game alive for a little bit longer, but there just wasn't anything interesting drama-wise that kind of kept people playing. No real storylines, no real epic beefs between teams and players that people were like, oh man, I want to see who wins, who comes out on top. No one really cared. I mean, it was just a couple of people squabbling, and that was about it. And like I said, the main reason the Uncharted community is considered AIDS or terrible in general is because it's a really tiny, small, tight-knit community, and people butt heads. I mean, it's very personal. We've known each other for years. I mean, some of these players have been playing Uncharted multiplayer since Uncharted 2. I mean, at this point, it's been like 7, 8 years. And like I said, not everyone stuck around all the way to Uncharted 4, but quite a few people have stuck around, and kind of everyone knows each other, and it got a little personal, and we butted heads. But like I said, it wasn't that bad. The Uncharted competitive community isn't really that bad. If you really want to see some really bad drama, you're more than welcome to try your look at some other gaming communities. Another reason people say the game kind of died is that it just wasn't designed to be competitive. And to be honest, I do agree. Uncharted wasn't designed to be a big competitive game. I mean, you can look at Naughty Dog's philosophy in general. I mean, dating back to Uncharted 2, I mean, people criticized the game for having too much health. They wanted it to be really low health, and they lowered it. And in Uncharted 3, they really casualified it by adding just about 50 different handicaps for people who were actually doing good through power plays. And then you just had really cheap mechanics to be exploited. I mean, Uncharted 3, you don't even have to aim. And I feel like Uncharted 4 was on the right path in the beta, but like I said, in the full game, there was definitely a huge increase in blind fire, and you saw a lot of people, again, in Uncharted 4 pulling on Uncharted 3, just not aiming in general. I mean, it's just never really been focused to be this really competitive esports game. Naughty Dog's known for their single-player games. I mean, I literally probably knew everyone who was super excited for Uncharted 4's multiplayer. I probably knew everyone who was super hyped for it. And that's kind of sad that one person manages to literally know just about everyone who's hyped for a multiplayer game. So that should give you the sheer scope of the idea of how many people I know and like how many people truly play this game avidly, much less competitively? It's just really not that much, and Naughty Dog has no real reason to cater to that small portion of people when they know their bread and butter is that single player. That's what's selling. I mean, that's what got them all the money. And moving forward with the multiplayer game, they just have laid out plans to support it, but it's nothing major. It's not like some huge marketing for the multiplayer and having some giant competitive support. I mean, there was a $100,000 Canadian tournament, which kind of caught me a surprise. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise, and that's probably the last big event Uncharted's going to get. I mean, all you have to do is look at UMG and be like, oh, well, they had this ladder with money, and what happened? I mean, I can tell you what happened. I mean, UMG saw the activity in the Uncharted multiplayer ladder, and they're like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and pull our money because no one's really playing this game, so we're not really having a payoff for the first season of the ladder. And I mean, it makes sense. There was no real push for this multiplayer. It was just kind of there. It definitely wasn't tacked on. I'm not telling you guys that Uncharted's multiplayer has ever been tacked on, and it's disappointing because I feel like they are pretty well realized multiplayers, especially Uncharted 4. I feel like Uncharted 4's multiplayer overall, I would rate it higher than Uncharted 3's casual, nonsensical mumbo jumbo magic bullshit unbalancedness that was Uncharted 3. And Uncharted 4 is definitely unbalanced, but it wasn't as bad as Uncharted 3, and somehow Uncharted 3 competitive managed to live on for quite a while. How? I'm not really sure. Maybe it's just because the game was so casual, so easy that people loved it. A lot of people played it. And like I said, I feel like some people just really didn't like Uncharted 4 multiplayer. I mean, people call The Last of Us 2.0 with the down system, but I'm going to tell you right now, I feel like the down system adds more strategy than it takes away. I mean, for example, in TDM, where like if you were down, that was probably just as bad as just flat out getting KO'd and died. Because if you're down, you put your teammates in an awkward situation. Do they push your body to revive you and risk getting like double down? I mean, if someone's down and someone goes heal, you're just going to toss an 8, and that's 2 kills, that's 2 deaths. I mean, that's a big punish right there in and of itself. Whereas if in Uncharted 3, or in Uncharted 2 and 3, if you kill someone, that's it. They're dead, they're dead. And it's not necessarily mean there's a big failure. I mean, yes, you're down a man and they could potentially swarm you and push you. But in general, I feel like in Uncharted 4, getting down is pretty serious. And I feel like there's a lot of strategy involving, should you bait your teammate? I mean, if your teammate's down, you know they're looking at it. Are they going to finish it? I mean, you can bait out your teammate who's down, which sounds slimy, but there's a lot of thought that goes into what happens when a player is down, if you push it, if you revive them. And right off the bat, people were very quick to criticize the down system, which, I mean, it's debatable, but overall, I feel like the down system probably added more depth to in-game gameplay than it took away, but people didn't want the down system, so in competitive play, they just took it all together, and I feel like that was a pretty big fatal mistake. I mean, I could argue in Plunder it might not have been a good idea because in essence, if you had downs in Plunder, you would just down everyone, not KO them, and force them to wait for that respawn timer to respawn. So if you have 1 or 2 people down, I mean, that's pretty bad. That just means a really easy cap on the other team's end. So maybe downs kind of maybe shouldn't have been implemented in Plunder, but in TDM, downs add nothing more than more strategy to what's going to happen. And I don't know why the community didn't like downs, maybe because the Uncharted community was a little bit different from the Last of Us community, but in general, no one wanted downs, and people just took it out, and I feel like it's a shame that they took out downs. But there were other things like mysticals and sidekicks, which most people were very quick to ban, and in general, I do feel like some of them should have been banned simply on the fact that they were just too powerful, like Hunters, like Indra, like the Chintamani Stone. Yes, they were far too powerful, and I do feel like if something is simply too powerful, it should be banned. But one thing you have to keep in mind is the gunplay in Uncharted 4 is fairly balanced. I mean, in Uncharted 2 and in Uncharted 3, there was some serious gun imbalances, and that didn't keep those games from succeeding in a competitive level. Whereas in Uncharted 4, it didn't even have that problem. I mean, all the guns were extremely balanced. It was just the mysticals, the sidekicks, and the whole debacle with downs, should they be in, should they not, kind of prevented the game from really having an appeal to a lot of people who avidly played the game. I mean, like I said, I feel like Naughty Dog, I feel like they went in the right direction with Uncharted 4's multiplayer, but I feel like the community, the Uncharted community who played Uncharted 2, who played Uncharted 3, die-hardly, just weren't really feeling it, so that might have just deterred people. But it's safe to assume that Uncharted's multiplayers have never been designed to be super competitive, but that doesn't really stop a multiplayer game from taking off competitively. But one of the reasons why I feel like the major reason why Uncharted 4 competitive just didn't take off is just no one wants to watch it. I mean, simply put, Uncharted 4 multiplayer competitively isn't really that entertaining to watch. I mean, all you have to do is really look at Triple Wreck. I mean, Triple Wreck kind of started out as an Uncharted kind of person. Obviously, he moved on to bigger, better things right now, but I mean, he will tell you. I mean, the reason he doesn't stream Uncharted 4 or why he doesn't really care about playing it that much is because it doesn't get views. No one really wants to watch it. I mean, all you have to do is really look back to when Uncharted 4 was released. I mean, everyone was streaming it. It was on the top of Twitch, but mainly because people were playing the single player and everyone was super hyped to see how the story was going to unfold. As soon as that kind of died down, Uncharted 4's position on Twitch quickly dropped, and people were streaming the multiplayer, but Triple was probably getting maybe couple hundred views tops. I mean, it was not much, and I'm sure he noticed, and everyone noticed. And everyone was just telling him, go play Destiny, blah blah blah. And of course he did, because I mean, he went back to it because it gets more views, and that's kind of what his thing is now. He wants to get more views, subscribers, blah blah blah. That's fine, but that simply points out the fact that no one wants to watch Uncharted 4 multiplayer. Who's the next biggest Uncharted 4 multiplayer streamer? Xshot? What does he get? 100, 200 views tops. I mean, that really isn't much. I mean, all I have to do is look at the other big popular multiplayer games out there. These streamers are getting thousands upon thousands of views. Like the top 2 or 3 are getting thousands and thousands of views. And then you go to Uncharted's little game and see who's streaming the multiplayer and who's the top streamer. You got 100 viewers tops. I mean, that's just pretty bad. I mean, that just kind of shows no one wants to watch Uncharted 4 multiplayer in general. I mean, there's just, like I said, it's never been the focus. Naughty Dog's never pushed for it to be a focus. Not like Blizzard, where they're like super pushy about their multiplayer games and getting all the marketing. It's like, hey, this is the next big esport. This is the next big thing. Check it out. And people check it out, and a lot of people gravitate towards it just because of how strong the marketing is. Whereas the marketing in Uncharted 4 is super in favor of the single player, and the multiplayer, most people probably just assumed it tacked on, and it's a shame because I don't feel like Uncharted 2, 3, or 4's multiplayers are tacked on. I feel like they are pretty well realized, not perfect, but they're definitely not tacked on. But I feel like that's the vibe the general audience gets. But if we're talking about Uncharted competitive, oh boy, even less people want to watch that, to be honest. I mean, I watched Uncharted 4 competitive matches. I watched all the little ESL tournament. I watched people's UMGs and stuff. And to be honest, it's really not that fun to watch. I mean, it's sad to say. I mean, if you watch Counter-Strike competitive, if you watch Overwatch competitive, if you watch like Dota competitive, I mean, it's exciting. People get hyped up. And don't even get me started on like competitive like fighting games like Street Fighter and Marvel. I mean, people lose their minds over like what happens in competitive play in these games. But it's just not that exciting to watch Uncharted 4 competitive. Whereas these other games, there's these big plays, like big stuff's happening, money's on the line. And Uncharted 4, there really isn't that much money. Like I said, UMG was quick to pull the money from the little ladder. There, like I said, there was a Canadian tournament, and it was pretty bizarre that there wasn't like an American one. But I feel like there wasn't an American one because they probably just assumed no one would care, no one wanted to attend. But I'm sure there would have been, probably more than if they threw that Canadian tournament. I'm sure the turnout was all right for the Canadian tournament. But if they threw something for the American side of things through a tournament, I feel like more people would attend. Not that many, of course, but I just feel like a lot of the big sponsors and stuff see our game and like see just how dead it is, how no one's watching it, and they're just like, why would we back that? Why would we sponsor? Why would we support like a multiplayer game that just no one wants to watch on Twitch? No one's watching it. No one's gonna see our like products. I mean, at the end of the day, a sponsor wants to get their stuff seen, and that's kind of the appeal. That's the relationship. You see a big game, you get a sponsorship, people see your products, people want to buy them. If you're a sponsor and you're like, oh, I'm going to sponsor this Uncharted person, you're probably making no profit because no one's watching that multiplayer, and you're just out there looking really strange and putting money into just a hole that's you're never going to recover from. So, I mean, that's probably the reason why Uncharted multiplayer just doesn't get a lot of support from tournaments and stuff. It's just these companies see that no one's really watching it, no one's really caring about this multiplayer, and they just have no reason to support it. And who's really going to support it? Just the players who probably don't really have that much money to put in. I mean, a lot of the people who play are probably young people, kids and stuff, so there's not much we can do in terms of financially getting this game off its feet and getting like it's a scene in itself. But like I said, one of the major reasons why Uncharted multiplayer just didn't go off is because it's just not that fun to watch. I mean, TDM, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that TDM cannot work competitively, because Halo has proven that you can play TDM competitively. But the reason it plays competitively on Halo is because there are power weapons. There's a reason to move around the map and make these big pushes. Whereas in Uncharted 4, they removed that element. And like I said, I don't feel like if you add power weapons into Uncharted 4 multiplayer, magically the game's going to be so much better. It's going to be so much more exciting to watch, because one mode's not going to make a whole game super epic competitively. I mean, at the end of the day, even if TDM was the greatest competitive mode ever, that's just one mode. What are you going to do? Watch people play that one mode over and over and over again? I mean, it works for Counter-Strike because there's an objective on the map. You never really know what's going to happen. There's so many variables that goes into it. Even though they're essentially playing search and destroy over and over and over again, there's tons of rounds. The game lasts for a while. It's super intense. There's these quick moments of like intense action. There's these really tense moments of build-up. You don't really see that in Uncharted multiplayer. You just don't. And even if they added power weapons, the game simply put at its current state wasn't designed to accommodate power weapons on the map. I mean, it is what it is. We're just going to have to deal with the fact that this is the way the maps are designed. This is the way the game's designed to be played. And power weapons on the map, just you can't even do it. I mean, there's no real forge. I mean, even if you could do it, where would you really put them? Try to put them in the center as evenly as possible to contest. I mean, that's just simply not going to work on every map. So TDM right off the bat just doesn't work competitively. And if you ever watched competitive TDM in Uncharted 4, you know what it looks like? It looks super slow paced, and I've seen TDM matches where literally it was won by like 2 kills and like 0 deaths. I mean, we're talking, it's the lamest stuff you'll ever see. It's gonna put you to sleep. I mean, the only reason you're watching because you're kind of curious to see who wins. And most of the time I watch those competitive TDM matches, I just skip to the end and I was like, wow, 3-1, amazing, 20 minutes of 3-1, awesome. But then there's the other problem. There's the fact that there weren't that many objective modes in the game, or just modes in general. I mean, you had Command, which Command would have been a great mode if it was just domination. And although you can't really play domination competitively, because all you have to do is really watch Call of Duty and see that domination competitively would basically just play out as which team holds 2 flags and then just sits there and spawn kills. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Just the same way if you added TDM competitive to COD, well, what's going to happen? All the pro players are just going to hide. It's going to be super boring. No one's going to want to watch it. So Command, even though it wouldn't have been that great of a mode, or Domination wouldn't have been that great of a mode for Uncharted competitive, it was made worse by the fact that they added a big old power play into the mode, essentially ruining the mode. Everyone hated it. It just added this really unnecessary gimp mechanic of comebacks. And I mean, comebacks should happen naturally. I mean, if you fight for it hard enough, if you play well enough, you should get that comeback. But never should a developer force some really gimpy comeback. I mean, there was a reason why people hated power plays in Uncharted 3. So why they kind of forced the power play into one objective mode in Uncharted 4 is truly mind-boggling on Naughty Dog's part. And I know recently they let us disable it in private games, which is fantastic, but I feel like it's a little too late, and even then, it's just not going to be that fun of a mode to be played competitively. Domination just doesn't really work in Call of Duty, so it's probably not really going to work in Uncharted either. And then we have the other objective mode, which is Plunder. And I love Plunder. Plunder's always been what I feel like a very unique, very fun mode in Uncharted. But unfortunately, Plunder didn't even work for a month or two. I mean, it was just super glitchy. I was watching these people trying their hearts out, playing super sweaty, super competitively. And what was going on? People would cap a Plunder and it would spawn right in front of them. And what do? I mean, you accidentally cap it and you get disqualified, or what you have to do. What people had to do to answer that question is people had to cap it, and if it glitched out, you just sit there and wait for it to respawn or something. Like, we had to accept the fact that the game wasn't functioning, so that affected competitive play, and people were just like, this is terrible, we can't even play it competitively, it's super glitchy. One of the modes super glitchy. The other mode, Command, is just an awful competitive mode, or just a mode in general. And then we have TDM, which isn't really fun to play competitively because everyone's just hiding the whole time. I mean, this is the big dilemma. These 3 modes that's all we got for competitive play, and pretty much all of them were terrible for competitive play. TDM's boring, Command's just awful, and Plunder didn't even work. And if it did work, it probably would have been a lot more fun, but it didn't work. So I mean, these were these huge cruxes that kind of held Uncharted 4 competitive from really working. And hopefully down the line they add more modes, maybe another objective mode. To be honest, being the pessimist that I am, I'm just going to assume they add elimination, and that would be fun to watch a little bit competitively, but a lot of people really want a more objective mode, and I'm not sure if Naughty Dog is going to give us an objective mode. I just feel like they're going to take the easy route and just give us elimination. But in general, that's the combination of everything I said is why I feel like Uncharted 4 competitive essentially died. I mean, no one really wants to watch it, and if no one really wants to watch it, no sponsors are going to want to support it or throw money into the scene, so there's no real reason for players to keep playing. I mean, what are you playing, for fun? And to be honest, people really didn't have fun playing Uncharted 4 multiplayer. Like I said, I really enjoyed Uncharted 4 multiplayer. I had a blast playing it, and I still have a blast playing it, but a lot of people don't have fun playing it. There's no real motivation competitive to keep playing outside of, winning a couple ladder matches and ultimately at the end of the season getting nothing in the end. And then there's just the fact that it wasn't designed to be competitive. I mean, you can turn anything really into competitive. I mean, you could play competitive cup stacking for all you care, but at the end of the day, if people don't want to watch that competitive gameplay, then what's the point? You're not playing for money. No one's watching you play. No one really cares. No one cares that you're the best Uncharted competitive player. What's your motivation to play Uncharted 4 competitive multiplayer? And the answer to a lot of people is nothing. There's just no reason to play Uncharted 4 competitive, and that's ultimately probably why it died. And it's unfortunate because I don't feel like the game's really that bad. I mean, in retrospect, like I've said multiple times, I feel like Uncharted 3 multiplayer is a whole lot worse, yet somehow it strived. Mainly what I think it survived so long is because it was really easy to play, and to be honest, it probably did have better modes to play competitively in the end, but I feel like the core gameplay of Uncharted 3 was easily worse than Uncharted 4, but that's an argument for other people in the debate. But I'm curious what you guys think. I'm sorry if I rambled for like 20 minutes straight, but I kind of had to get this off my chest. I'm very curious, what do you guys think? What literally caused Uncharted 4 multiplayer to die, if there's one reason? Leave your thoughts and comments below. I'm curious to hear what you guys think, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.